Hello, it's me, Scott. I'm here to do my first developer diary. I tried shooting it yesterday, but in Los Angeles it gets really hot in the summer, and it's usually about 80 degrees in my apartment with the air conditioner on. I don't usually like to have the AC on when I record because it makes a lot of background noise, but I have a new camera and I think it looks really good, but it gets overheated and it shuts down. So today I'm trying this again at 5:51 a.m. and I hope it works out a little bit better. I have the AC on. We'll see if it's too noisy. Hopefully I can take some of that out in post. Okay, so, if this is going to be a developer diary, I'm going to play it a little faster and looser than I normally like to with video, and especially about something that I'm working on. If you look at this channel, you'll see I've done a couple videos a couple years ago where I put a lot of work into it. I did a bunch of graphic design and tried to explain things, visually and really clearly and nicely. But what I found from trying to do this developer diary now is it ends up taking me all day to shoot and then edit and then do the graphics. And, hopefully over time that'll shorten up. But for now, it's really eating up most of my developer time. And I'm really trying to get back to just working. So today's Sunday. I don't usually like to work on Sunday. It's really kind of bad for your mental health to do this all the time, nonstop. So, but shooting video is fine. So instead of actually doing any work today, I'm going to go over the website and the game and sort of show you what you can do, what's already there, how it works. So if we load up moonlightpress.games or moonlight-press.com, pick whichever you like. I just got the .games. It's a lot easier to explain to people. So when we load up the site, we can see just right off the top, you can create your character, and that's going to be what you want to do because, you can't save your progress if you don't sign up. So, you say, my name's Charlie, and start, and then it pops up here. I went to school for user-centered design, and one of the things you learn is that if you don't just tell people what you want them to do, they're not going to do it. So you can sign up here. If we go down into the game window, and all of this is done in Unity, this is actually a pretty interesting project. I don't know, none of my peers try doing this because it's insane and it takes so much work and you have to do everything exactly right or otherwise it breaks. But so all of the game stuff is built in Unity, and that's in this little window here. And then everything else on the website is HTML and JavaScript, which is not my strength. So it's a very challenging sort of ecosystem to keep going. And so, if you didn't get it, that you can sign up. Here's a sign up button, takes you right back to the top. If you keep scrolling, you can see a little bit of concept animation for Frontier. And then, hey, another sign up window. You can also, donate to the project. It is educational and it is free to play. And memberships are really just for little bonus extras to help support the project. But then, if you give money, your name can go at the bottom of the window. I'm going to recontextualize this to, instead of being a fundraiser so much as being a membership drive. So I need to kind of fiddle with this. But anytime I work on the website, there's a chance I can break everything. So I try to take small windows where that's all I do. So I'll be getting to that in the incoming weeks, I'm sure. Okay, so let's just kind of give an overview of how the system works. This is my character. This is Charlie. And, eventually this will be an avatar that you can, change the skin tone, change the hair color, pick your outfit, all of that stuff. That's kind of a big undertaking in what's already a big project. So when I have more people come on, that's when it'll be time to create your own character. So these are your attributes. I'm sure you've seen these in other role-playing games before. They sort of govern your ability to do things in the game. So like if you're going to shoot your bow more accurately, you want a higher dexterity, right? Luck doesn't technically do anything, but I think that's kind of funny. Like, it's amusing to me that you have a stat that it seems like it does something, right? Like, clearly if I harvest something, it's going to give me a chance of getting something better, but that's not actually how it works. We can get into that some other time. But this was originally supposed to be stamina, and what I'd like to do is have it so you can hook up your Fitbit or your Nike Plus account, and if you go for a run, your stamina goes up so that your character, can do more in a day, maybe run a little bit faster because you run a little bit faster. One of the things I'm really interested in this project is removing the abstractions from the role-playing game as much as possible when it comes to the characterization, and then put all of that abstraction into the interactions themselves, so that so for example, if you want to raise your wisdom, you can click on this, and then these are some wisdom skills. So you raise your attributes through action, right? This is your level, this is your token. So actually, let's log in. You can kind of see what it looks like when you actually have a character set up. So the difference between this and most role-playing games is that you don't fight a monster, get XP, and then determine where you want to put your attributes. In Arcadia, you do actions, and that determines what your attributes are. So I probably said that earlier, but I'm going to probably repeat myself because I'm not editing these videos. That's not how diaries work. So if I want to raise my wisdom, here are some games that'll raise my wisdom. So a lot of times that's like puzzles or like memory games. Intelligence or intellect in this context is more about like straight knowledge, and that comes from the primer. And we'll look at the primer in a minute. So a couple interesting things that I'm doing. One is like a decay system, so that if you don't use a skill for a long time, it starts to decline a little bit. And so if you don't, practice your music skills in like 2 years, then you're not going to be as high a level as you used to be. And then also a fatigue system. So this is something I learned from Final Fantasy XIV. Actually, a lot of Japanese like online role-playing games do this, where if you play too much in a day, you stop getting as many experience points or skill points. Partly because this is something that's supposed to be appropriate for kids, and I don't think kids should be sitting around playing video games all day. Like 2-hour window is like max. That's probably too much. So I don't want you sitting around just grinding out XP on these games. So here's your skill level. One of the interesting things I'm doing, because it's a skill-based game, your actual player level doesn't really have any meaning. It doesn't do anything. It's just a number that goes up. And so what I have found in my experience playing a lot of role-playing games is that once a level gets to the max, it stops becoming a motivator and for progress. And so what I'm experimenting with, and I think this is actually kind of interesting. I have not gotten enough feedback to know if it's a good idea, but I like it. Is that you can sell your level for the currency in the game. There's different ways you can earn currency. These little tokens here. But you put in the work, like trade it in. Right now you max out at 10. I don't remember how many tokens you get. It's probably like 200 or something like that. But it's just like it's sort of an interesting idea I'm trying out. So like I said, you get your stats from playing games. So this video might turn out to be a little bit long. I have a lot of games. I'll try and be brief. Actually, let's go through this really quick, and then I'll come back. So yeah, I've got a bunch of games. I think there's like 30 total right now. These ones up here are, anyone can play them. Some of these are games I've designed like 10 years ago. And I still think those are the best ones, honestly. So these ones are anyone can play. I've got Morse code games. I've got music games. I've got, here's Memory Match. Very straightforward, very simple game. But, I have a friend who will play this for like an hour. I don't know how or why she does it, but she loves this game. I wasn't looking. Pretty cut and dry. A lot of these games are what you would sort of think of as mini games in a larger context. I think of them as things that you would play on the train or in between class. When I was in elementary school, we were just first getting computers in the school, and so we would sit around and play Hearts, which, Hearts is fine, and then you start learning, like Mavis Beacon teaches typing, or actually I think we had Mario teaches typing, which that's sort of what I'm trying to focus on, is games that, can eat up a little bit of your time to just get through some boredom in the day, but also are providing some kind of value to you as far as like character growth, right? Like it's character-based RPG, your character should grow by playing it. So these are the games that are open to anyone. I also have early access games for people who become a member. And the reason these are early access is partly just because they're a little bit unpolished, or they have, very small bugs. If they had big bugs, if these were crashing all the time, I wouldn't put them up. But like, my Sudoku game technically works, but I don't know. I don't think it looks great. I have, different controls. They're just not, I wouldn't sell this. I wouldn't put this on a store, but it's fully functional and gives you skill points, which is really what's important, is that it's functional within sort of the context of the other games. And so, if you remember, you can play it. Sure, you want more wisdom points, you can play Sudoku. I don't really love Sudoku, but there it is. Then I also have I'm putting little experiments up so that people, members can try them. This one's kind of interesting. It's sort of like Mario Paint music, but you have to play at the beat for the note to show up. I think this took me like a day to set up. I don't think it's a game. Like that's basically the reason I haven't finished it. So, or not, or I don't even know if I'm going to maybe even ever look at it again. But it's not really a game. You can't win it. It's just like a toy. So, if you want to mess around with it, it's sort of an interesting idea, but it's not really going to go anywhere. And that's one of the things that you get as a premium membership, with a premium membership. So I also have a list of games that are coming soon. This is a very limited list. If we go to, I'll make this available so other people can look at it later. I'm still cleaning it up. But this is my big list of Arcadia games that I'm going to get to. I've actually built out all of the art assets for them, and I've set up the projects. The problem is just that these are mostly two-player games. I do have a list of one-player games that are like the ones already on the website, but there's this whole world of abstract strategy games. Some of them are thousands of years old. Games like chess, checkers, and then ancient versions of it, right? Like Dara is kind of like checkers, but I think it's on a different size board. Instead of X and O's, you use like sticks and rocks. Mancala is one. I could make them, but I could not design the AI so that you can play as a single player. That's a little bit above my skill level. Some of them I probably can do, but this is where I'm going to start really needing assistance, and this is why I'm doing a membership drive, so I can raise money to bring on more people to do more complicated games. It would also be nice to have them so that you can do matchmaking and with your skill level, right? Like I'm level 4, I can play chess with level 4 people. Like I said, I need some help. So back to the main site. That's Arcadia. Let's look at one of the games. So some of the things that are, I think, really interesting on here in the plain, everyday, everybody gets to play list are the music games are my favorite. Let's see which is a good one. Repeater is probably the best place to start. It's fairly simple. You get some notes and then you play them back. Right, and so you can play it with the keyboard, you can play it on touch with like an iPad, you can play it with your mouse. I try to make everything accessible from as many platforms as possible. And so with this one, it's pretty simple. Dun, dun, and one of the things I try and focus on with Arcadia games is starting at the simplest possible version and then building out to the most difficult possible version within one session. And so with music, my approach has been to just give you like B, C, and wait, is that B, C, and D, and then once you can do a round B, C, and D, now we'll add E, then we'll add A, then F, then G, right? And so each time you start, you're going to start at the easiest round, just to kind of build up a little confidence. And then you can see here now we've added E. So if we lose, you can see I earned some skill points in the key of C. I earned some points for the clef I was playing in, and then also for the game that I was playing in itself. So if I also want some points in the key of C, I can also play it in the treble clef. I can play in black and white mode, which gives you extra points because it's a lot harder. And then I can play in the key of C, or I can change it, right? I can play in the key of D sharp major. And then now this game is kind of like Simon, and it's super hard to play in black and white, especially if I'm talking. So boom, boom, boom. Okay. every time I show this, I can't play it, and I mess up and I look stupid. So here's another music game. You also get points for the they share. What I'm trying to say is they share skills, right? If you can play in the key of C in any game, whether it's in Arcadia or in the adventure game, those points transfer, right? This is all one large ecosystem. You play as the same character across every game. So if we I don't know. I could be here all day playing. It's like, here's another music game, but this one, the notes come at you. Here's one where instead of memorizing it or playing a song, you have to get the bass line of the notes. And it plays. I don't have my headphones in, so I don't know what that was. And then you have to guess it, right? Like it's an ear training game. I have some interesting stuff like Morse code. You have to, in this one, you have to play the letter. And then you can have them increase. So in this one, with the increasing of difficulty, you can go alphabetically in this mode, or you can go based on complexity. So, like E is just a dot, T is just a dash. Those are the easiest possible letters. And so I do that when I can in some of these games. I try and find like the simplest version. Some of them are incredibly simple, like Jumper. Also my names. I try to be descriptive, but I don't know. This is where if like you don't have anyone else on your team to kind of tell you that something is terrible, then you just end up sticking with it because you get used to it. So in Jumper, you jump. In Tonal Recall, you recall tones. And so this one, it's just jumping. Like if you're an experienced game player like me, then this is very simple. You should be able to get to level 10 in this really quickly and then not have to play it for a really long time. If you already have a level of dexterity, there's no point in like making you grind through these little mini games. But also like you have to prove it. And that's something that I try and focus on across all of the different pieces of this project is, really like expressing your skill and finding opportunities to test it even further. And so like the problem with Jumper is that there's only so much complexity you can add to a game where you're just jumping. Because if you think about Mario, you run left and right, you go down pipes, you jump and hit blocks. But a lot of those have nothing to do with the actual skill of jumping. It's a confederation of a bunch of different skills associated with one another. And so the idea behind Arcadia is that you would have a game like this that's just jumping, and then we'll make another game. Like here's an example. So Star Grinder is a game where you move left and right and shoot, right? Like you can, this one, it's a little bit like Space Invaders, except the bullets come back if you miss, and then also they shoot at you. This one also could use a little bit of refinement, but so you go left and right and you shoot, right? Like you could also have a game where you turn and go forward. Shoot. Actually, I think I do have one for that. Driftward, right? So slightly different skill. This one's more like Asteroids. Instead of going left and right and shooting, you rotate and shoot and go forward. Oh, and this one, the bullets come around the edge. Some of my games are very similar to arcade games you've played in the past, but if they are very similar, I try to add a little something to keep you on your toes. And in this case, the bullets will get you if you are careless. And so, this and Star Grinder have things in common, but they are fundamentally different ways of approaching movement and spatial relationship. And so I try to find the smallest granular pieces so that in the future I can take those pieces and combine them together to create sort of larger, more interesting frameworks. And so, like, for example, like the Tonal Recall, for example. It's a memory game. You memorize a sequence of notes. Simon is also a memory game where you memorize a sequence of colors. So I also have a color-based one, right? Purple. I mean, this is just Simon. Purple, green, blue. I also try to do the easier ones later because it's really nice to really accomplish something in like 2 hours when the game before it took 3 days. So here's a sequence base that's based on color. Here's a sequence based or a sequence game based on shape, right? And they're all kind of working the same section of your brain, the sequential memory section, but each one approaches it from a different direction. And so my theory, I guess, is that you can really reinforce these abilities by approaching them from separate angles, right? So yeah, so you can come play these yourself. Like, I don't need to go through every single one of them. Sign up, create an account. One of the things you get also if you sign up is that you can get access to the store. If you're a member, you can also become a sponsor. You can become a sponsor down here as well. And that's, like I said earlier, that's how you get your name at the bottom of the site. And it really helps me out. But I won't spend all day talking about the fundraising. Frontier, let's come back to this. Let's start here. So this is Charlie, right? She has attributes. She's got 4 dexterity, 10 intellect, and you can use those in the game. So this is not really a demo. This is kind of like my idea of it's sort of like a picture book, an interactive picture book. So these are things that you kind of do in the game, and you can interact with them in sort of a minor way. I do have a version that is fully playable. It's just kind of like, it's using assets that I've cobbled together from different places, so it feels uncohesive. I don't know if I really want people just walking around in it playing it, because it is, first impressions really matter. So I think this kind of gets the idea across without having to make you feel like I don't know how to make a video game. So this little thing, right? Like, here's Charlie's. It's what you do in Frontier, right? You go around, you interact with animals and plants. So if I click on this cherry tree, it tells me a little something about it. I need to do another pass on the UI, clearly. And so let's say I want to chop down this tree. If I have a higher dexterity score, I'll chop it down faster. But also, if I want to have a better yield or know which trees are the best ones to cut down, like which ones are, trees aren't ripe, but they're, mature. And one of the things I can do, and this has a gameplay function, but also it's sort of the theme behind this whole idea of Arcadia, is that if you interact with something, you should be able to learn from it, right? So if I want to know more about cherry trees and be able to harvest better quality cherries and more cherries, I can click on this, and it'll take me to the primer. And so this is the primer over here. Let's click on that. And the primer is kind of like Wikipedia. It's a little bit like Duolingo mixed together. And so the idea is there are 90 skills. So I've got, I think, 110 skills across all of the different games, but 90 of them are within the primer. So pick your poison. You've got engineering, you've got biology, and these are how you get intellect points, is by playing this. And so let's see. So if I say like botany, right? Boshniakia hukari is a native plant. Everything in Frontier is native to the Pacific Northwest, specifically sort of like Western Washington, because that's where I developed it, was in Seattle. And so that's where I set the game. And so this particular plant is called a ground cone. So let's say I don't know anything about what this even means. I can click on Wikipedia. It'll take me to the article. I can learn about these interesting parasitic plants that you can grind up and make flour out of. And then I got a point. Of course, I click on something that, the next one is something I definitely don't know what it is. So what I can do is I can, if I just want to participate and I want to get some points, I can ask, what is Oxalis corniculata? And so what that does is it kind of creates, they're sort of like flashcards. So it creates a question card, and then it puts it into the system. And then the next one is a bud, and I can say a fact. And I say like a bud, I'm going to show that I'm actually pretty stupid. A bud is the first phase of a flower. True, false, that's up to you to decide, right? So now that creates a card so that when someone else comes and plays, they will potentially, if they get bud, it'll say my fact as a true or false, and then they have to answer it, and then they can get points from interacting with it. So it's not so much about being right at the moment, because I can't actually tell if you're correct or not based on the question. If I hooked up ChatGPT, there's potential there, but also ChatGPT is frequently wrong and makes stuff up. So I'm sticking with this approach for now. So the idea is, I have a handy chart down here. If you get a prompt, which is like the ones we just looked at, you can ask a question, state a fact, and then questions create questions, and then facts create true false. And then by interacting with them, you start generating more cards, right? Like if everyone says that my fact about buds is true, then that answer goes up the list. And then you get, if you were to answer that same thing, then it would know that like the confidence interval is high, and I can give you more points. And instead of, it's hard to show this because I'm logged in as myself and you don't get your own responses. And so I'm the only one who really plays it right now. And so there's no one else's responses for me to see. Sometimes I do find things that other people put in. But if you really want to help and participate in this project, just playing the primer does a lot. I don't know if you saw when I finished this round, but every round that you do gives you tokens. So this is really the best way to earn currency in the game, is to play the primer. You're helping build out the network. You're helping, you're learning probably a little bit. Like even if you just click on the Wikipedia for something, you're going to learn something about it. Like you can't help it because it's relevant to you, right? Like I wanted to know more about cherries. So, cherries are delicious. It's true. But you can still say false if you don't like it. So yeah, I don't know. I can talk about this stuff all day, but if I'm just sitting here by myself, I'll just start rambling. So, Frontier, the idea about behind this game is that you wake up in this house like 5 million years in the future, and the human race has sort of dwindled to nothing, and you and these other kids, I think of them as being around 12 or 13 years old, you're basically one of the last colonies of humans, and you have to learn about the world. My camera, I see the thing. My camera is overheating right now, so I need to take a break. I will come back to this in a minute after everything is cooled down. Okay, I'm back. It turns out there's a setting that I can do to make it so that the temperature doesn't shut the camera off, but I'll figure it out over time. All right, so apparently this is a 30-minute video already. It's really hard to succinctly go over this whole system. If I were just doing a marketing video, it might be a little bit easier because it's like, oh, hey, it's an adventure game, and it's got Wikipedia in it, and then also a bunch of mini games. Like that's fairly simple. But I don't have like enough of that sort of flow completed to actually be able to show it. So I tend to start with the things that are most complete into the things that are less complete. So I think we were here. So yeah, I'll start over, I guess. So you're a kid and you have a bunch of other kids, and it's far, far in the future, and society's collapsed, and basically your job is to learn what it takes to survive, which means collecting plants and animals, finding out what's edible, finding out how to cook it, how do you create shelter, how do you get salt? Let's say you're living in the woods near the ocean. Like how are you going to get salt? There are methods to do it. You can pull it out of ocean water, but you probably never thought about how to actually do that. There was a book I read as a kid called, there's two of them, Hatchet and My Side of the Mountain, and both of them are about kids being in the wilderness and learning how to survive. I was a scout as a child, and I did not enjoy it, but I do appreciate its value. And so I think what I'm trying to accomplish with this game is to create something that's akin to the Boy Scout manual that is interactive. And I can get into sort of like the psychology and the methodologies behind all of this stuff in another time, because this video is already entirely too long. And talking about that would make it 3 hours long. So, yeah, so the idea is that you most of the time you're going to be in the woods, but there are places that are, ruins of the old world stuff that we have today. So like, you can click on a tree and learn about it, but you can also click on this car, right? It's a Ford Galaxy sedan. Tell me all about that. So it'll take you to the primer, and you can learn about the Galaxy sedan if you have a high enough score in engineering. If you get all the parts together, it might take a long time and you're going to need some help, but you can potentially rebuild this car, right? you'll find vending machines throughout the world. I'm actually going to make this interactive at some point. But yeah, so, everything in this world is something that you can click on, right? A chinkapin I think these are lavender. Yeah. So here's the different characters. I don't actually think I've named any of them. I've had these character designs for a very long time, but I usually just refer to them by their role within the environment. So your job is sort of a generalist. Uh, like in every RPG, you fetch. Like, hey, I need 6 squirrels to make a stew. Okay, well now you got to go hunt 6 squirrels. But this girl here is the botanist. She is interested in plants. This one is he's actually the cook. I had another character for the cook, but I really like this design. He's also going to be the one who does textiles and makes leather goods. I sort of think of him also as the weaver, but that's sort of a later part of the game. We have the hunter, we have the blacksmith, and we have the carpenter. So there's a lot of different things I'm trying to fit in here. I have a meditation mini game in the first prototype. It's not great. I need another pass at it. But I think it's really important to put these kinds of things into the game as well. Not just, memorizing facts or doing coordination tasks, but also trying to learn a little bit more about yourself as well, right? Like, learning meditation exercises is really important. It's not something you have to engage in, but if you run out of focus points, like, that's a way to rebuild them or regain them at least. So I'm not going to go any more into this, but that's sort of the big picture of the game, right? Like, you have a character, you build your stats, you learn about the environment, and then you affect your environment. And so that's everything that's on the website that you can interact with right now. Like I said, you can create an account, you can become a paid member, you can purchase tokens. I don't know if I recommend doing that just because, it is a prototype, and once we move into an alpha and then a beta stage, we're probably going to have to wipe the server. And I will do my best to maintain everyone's skills and all that. I back this stuff up constantly. But, it's not a completed project. So, caveat emptor, right? Buyer beware. So, so I would also like to kind of get into Frontier, like where I'm going with this, but I think it might be a little bit too long. Here's just as a taste, so that I'm actually putting work into it, right? Like, here's your character. You wake up in the house. The animation stopped working for some reason. You get the primer. Now you can scan everything, right? Like, oh, what's this? It's a piano. I'm going to learn about it. I'm going to play it. And here's a little piano mini game that I built that's a little bit different from the Arcadia games, and it's really more about just, learning how it works without the pressure of getting points or losing potentially. But once you have the primer, you can, go outside. You can see, oh, hey, the world is still here. There's a barbecue grill down there. And so this is using an asset pack from Lime Zoo. I can put the link for his work in the comments or in the description below. But this is like, I think 2 weeks of work to build this prototype. So clearly, like, these little icons up here are entirely too silly. It says button. But yeah, like, I'm working on it. So this is what I'll be doing in the future, right? Like, this is what these diaries are mostly going to be about, is this prototype. But I don't need this video to be 10 hours long. So I think I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for watching. I'm sorry this is so long. It's, like I said, it's very difficult to be able to kind of encapsulate the whole project in one video, because, like, without showing any of the actual gameplay. I mean, I could just describe it, but who wants to just look at me talk all day? So that's the end of this session. I think the next one I'm going to focus on organization. Like I said, I try not to work on Sundays. So Monday morning, we're going to look at my, the program's called Notion. It's basically like a workflow management tool. Trello is one, Jira There's a lot of ones you use when you're making games or any software, really. I mean, they're useful for anything. I've used it for writing a screenplay. But yeah, thanks for watching. I never know how to end these videos. So I hope you have a good day, and I hope I can get this camera to not overheat next time. All right, see you around.